Hello, my name is Franklin Estein, and my policy proposal to improve America's energy security is to overhaul the nation's position within the global lithium-ion battery supply chain in order to improve the nation's capability to store renewable energy. So for a little bit of background, solar and wind power are becoming increasingly prevalent around the world as they could produce up to 35% of the world's electricity in 2040, according to the International Energy Agency. And this is due to both the reduced cost of the technology and the tighter carbon emissions targets are enacted around the world. And a key problem with wind and solar power is the intermittence of their supply, since they're highly weather dependent. And therefore, it's necessary to consider storing the energy. And batteries remain, as of right now, the most viable way to store energy, as it can be used in any environment. So unlike, for example, pumped reservoirs that require specific topographical conditions, and lithium-ion batteries are attracting the bulk of global investment in energy storage. And a lot of this is due to the advantage that lithium-ion batteries, which are the most feasible type, due to their advantages that they offer. So they are very high energy dense. They are lightweight and require quite little maintenance, and they can be safely disposed. And as a result, the costs of lithium-ion batteries, according to Bloomberg New Energy Finance, has decreased by 85% from 2010 to 2018. So here are some current concerns with the US's role in the lithium-ion battery supply chain. So first of all, the US has only a very small share of global lithium supply, and this makes it exposed to price fluctuations and foreign supply chains, as well as it's missing out on by not investing in the raw material, it would be missing out on an opportunity in the current state of low lithium prices. And second thing, the US plays only a minor role in the battery production market, as it has little cell production capacity, and the growing worries that China, with whom the US currently already has many tensions, is set to increase its share. That's definitely a threat to American energy security. And third of all, there is a strong need for better technology in the production process in terms of producing lithium-ion batteries, as they still, as of right now, they emit much carbon dioxide, and they are not as cost-effective in the long term as they would need to be in order to be a viable form of energy storage in the future. So this map shows the problem of access to lithium supply. So there are two types of lithium deposits. There's brine, so that's salt lake, and spodumene, which is hard rock. So the brine deposits are mainly located in Argentina, Chile, and China, as you can see here. And hard rock deposits are mainly located in Brazil and Australia. But North America is forecast to increase its global share of lithium supply to 5% in 2025. But as shown by the map here, virtually all of this will come from Canada's new brine deposits. So to explain this problem, why is access to lithium supply a major problem for the US? It makes it especially vulnerable to price fluctuations, which are particularly susceptible to concerns over supply. And it's especially for spodumene projects, which are likely to come on and offline as the price dictates, since they are unprofitable at lower prices. And they face high shipping costs from Australia, where the largest deposits currently are. And it's the vulnerability of the US to these price fluctuations is shown by the forecast of industry experts of shortages in the near term at the beginning of last year, but costs actually fell dramatically over the course of the year, and continue to remain low due to fears of oversupply. And due to these low prices, there's clearly an opportunity for the US to invest. And there is widespread consensus that the demand for electric vehicles will accelerate throughout the world, including the US, throughout the 2020s. And therefore, this would definitely be an investment that could be profitable for the nation to consider, although it's not certain exactly when when the boom in electric vehicles will exactly arrive and to what extent. It's certain that it will arrive and it will be quite substantial. And it is associated with lower air quality and lower and noise pollution. So, and they can act as a source of mobile storage themselves by funneling power back into the electricity grid when they are parked and plugged into stations. So this graph by Bloomberg shows a second major problem facing the US with regard to the global lithium supply chain, and that is battery production. So despite the uncertainty, it is still worth getting a sense of the extent of possible electric vehicle demand. And it is clear that only a very small fraction of demand is expected to be for storage, as can be seen right here. So the US clearly has an opportunity to be a leader in this market. So therefore, it can definitely focus on manufacturing the cells or the batteries themselves rather than just getting the lithium. And so currently, the US only controls 13% of global lithium cell production capacity. And it only has, and this share is forecasted to stall in the next 2 years. And it only has one of the 10 largest lithium plants in the world, which is Tesla and Panasonic's Gigafactory 1. And it's had investment recently suspended. And part of this reflects the fluctuations in demand. And with these uncertainties, it's clear that the private sector on its own is not well positioned to increase this battery production. Secondly, also just as concerning for the US is that China's share of lithium battery production capacity is expected to increase to around 3/4 of the world's total by 2021. And this is accompanying American concerns over intellectual property protection and technology transfer. And this definitely presents a threat to American energy security amid the nation's current tensions. And with so little battery production, not only has a small role in the lithium supply, on the lithium supply side, but also on the demand side. And given the uncertainty over both the direct cost of electric vehicles and the opportunity costs, such as the cost of oil in the long term, incentives will continue to significantly impact electric vehicle demand. And so if the US wants to be less exposed to price fluctuations, it should definitely play a role through incentives, and government incentives specifically. And problematically, current incentives are scattered between federal authorities and state governments and are subject to change every year. And so they are very unpredictable for firms such as Tesla that are trying to get into this market. Third major problem is production inefficiencies. So lithium-ion batteries are still unfit for long-term needs due to their cost, and they are prone to overheating. And the production process itself emits much carbon dioxide, and some estimates even suggest that they could outweigh the carbon emissions reductions from switching to vehicles with internal combustion engines. And many valuable metals and other materials are wasted in the process, so it's an inefficient production, inefficient extraction process, as well as production process of the batteries. As according to the International Energy Agency, less than 5% of lithium-ion batteries in the US are recycled, and most lithium spodumene in the world is exported to inefficient third-party converters in China. And current research efforts to improve battery technology are largely uncoordinated. So the proposed solutions to these three problems are, for the first, investment in lithium mining to address the issue of lack of supply, then to encourage lithium battery plant construction to address the security risks associated with little cell production capacity. And the third proposed solution is incentives to develop technologies to increase battery efficiency to address the monetary and environmental costs associated with battery production. So regarding the first solution, investment in lithium mining would be incentivized through an extension to or an offshoot of the federal renewable electricity PTC for forthcoming mining projects. And it currently applies to a wide variety of renewables facilities, and it could also implement the scaled approach at 1.5 cents per kilowatt hour eventually if projects are deemed successful. And the whole production process, starting from the initial digging of the mine for excavation, would be eligible for the funding based on the work test provision. And inevitably, since a few lithium deposits are unavailable within the US, investment in these mines must occur abroad, and that makes it ineligible for financing from the Department of Energy. So that's why the PTC would have to come in. And it would combine investment in lithium spodumene and lithium brine deposits, since spodumene has a more limited direct environmental impact, but brine uses less energy consumption and it's cheaper and less detrimental in the long run. Spodumene does have more reliable production methods, while brine is eligible for financing from the US Development Corporation, formerly OPEC, since their deposits are mostly located in emerging markets, such as Argentina and Chile. So some benefits of this policy would clearly be support of American jobs at firms further down the supply chain. And there would be several beneficiary American firms, including the well-established corporation Albemarle, as well as firms with penny stocks currently that would benefit from the greater financial support from the government. And it would also lead to a bolster role for the US in the lithium-ion battery supply chain, as all of these policy elements would. And sufficient investment would also address technical challenges and low quantity raw material production that have plagued producers recently. And this recent difficulty means that the US does have time to get into, catch up and get into the market. And the American government could also back the nation's firms in royalty and transfer pricing disputes that are currently stifling production. It's a clear need to help the private sector. And although there are some worries about low lithium demand, but this is likely just short-term noise and could just reflect the US-China trade war, which this policy would actually help skirt around. And lithium-ion projects are subject to spikes in capital expenditures, yet this just strengthens the US case for the government support, since it would help reduce uncertainty among investors, and more control by the US over the market would limit the fluctuation of lithium prices according to Chinese economic conditions. So the second solution, battery plant construction, would be incentivized through the DOE's Loan Programs Office under Title 17 of the Energy Policy Act of 2005. And it would be specifically via the Renewable Energy and Efficient Energy Project solicitation, which is up to $4.5 billion in the Loan Guarantee Authority, meaning that no tax or deficit increase is necessary immediately. And this would help attract investment from both sustainable domestic producers and multinationals with scale. And it could also supply American enterprises further down the supply chain, as LG's plant is currently supplying car makers. So here's Tesla's Gigafactory 1, and it's an example of the sustainable investment that the policy proposal could target, as the battery construction facility is powered by solar energy. So specific benefits and trade-off of this second policy proposal Plants would support American jobs both directly and indirectly further along the supply chain. And this would actually address the issues of decreasing wages and competition abroad in the manufacturing industry and allow blue collar workers to transfer to to higher value added jobs. And it would take advantage of the international ties of diverse firms by luring MNCs to the US, um, bringing in know-how from a variety of environments and sources, as well as American companies back home, such as Tesla, which actually recently completed its new gigafactory in Shanghai. And in the long run, such investment would decrease costs, which is still a major hurdle for mass production. And it may also be difficult. So some concerns are that it may be difficult to identify the most viable projects, but its provision to allow the private sector to take over the projects fully eventually. That is likely to foster long-term dynamism. And it will be difficult to attract firms away from China, but this may be more feasible when combined with the first policy element of tax credits toward investment in lithium mines. But given China's head start, it is clearly necessary to at least try to divert production from China. And so the last policy solution, technological improvements, would be realized by hiring liaison officials specifically for cultivating ties between researchers at American universities and partners. And the policy element would thereby take the form of a trade policy where firms exchange information rather than goods regarding technological innovations with partners abroad. And it would encourage scientists to report their activities as well, increasing transparency in that regard. So here specifically, the Department of Energy's Vehicle Technology Office would offer the foundation for liaison officials to facilitate links between diverse groups of researchers, including those at multinational bodies like the International Energy Agency, as well as national labs and universities the VTO is already working with. And technological improvements would also specifically address safety risks, including metals that may leak from the casing. And technological improvements may also improve recycling of lithium-ion batteries. And that's one of the most intuitive ways to reduce the negative environmental consequences associated with battery production. And recycling would allow older materials of batteries to more easily adapt to changing models as their materials become available again. But it's just one of the many ways in which the US can work toward improving the efficiencies of lithium-ion batteries. And so some major benefits are, for recycling specifically, it would reduce manufacturing costs, reduce waste, and it would also reduce the nation's dependence on foreign sources of auxiliary battery materials such as cobalt and graphite, thereby making the supply chain more secure. And international cooperation would also promote diverse viewpoints, as breakthroughs could be made under the leadership of American universities. And ties between the government and domestic universities would be strengthened, making the universities more transparent to the public. And the links between researchers and their countries could help promote regulatory convergence, which is currently definitely a major obstacle to mass battery production. The Vehicle Technologies Office current explicit aims more exclusively focus on electric vehicle technology, but its focus on reducing the cost of batteries align very well with this proposal. Another major concern could be the budget increase for the DOE, but it's likely that this will be trivial since liaison officials are not should not be very expensive to hire, and also the benefits would trickle down to consumers in the form of better technology and cheaper batteries. And the trustworthy engagement of other countries is a concern. That's why this would likely be difficult to implement with nations with which the U.S. currently has tensions. But American universities could use their existing ties and insist on conditional flows of information to improve the sharing of research. So thank you very much for listening to my presentation and that concerning improvements in American energy security through a bolster role for the U.S. in the global lithium-ion battery supply chain.